Yo, book nerds. For those of you who may not know, I live in Minnesota and it's actually finally been nice out this last week, and I spent a lot of time outside, and of course I got sunburned. Of course. I always get sunburned. So if my face is red, I don't know if you can tell on the video or not, but I'm very sunburned. Anyway, before I get started, I want to give a quick shout out to my boyfriend Taylor. This video is going up on May 23rd, which is his birthday. So happy birthday, Taylor. So as you may have seen from a previous video, I did go to school for creative and professional writing, and I have a bachelor's degree in that. So with that degree, I had to take a lot of literature classes and obviously writing classes. And so my college years were spent doing lots and lots of reading, which I greatly enjoyed. And so today I just wanted to kind of go through books that I read in college that I loved, that I decided to keep. I read way more books than what I'm going to go through today, but I didn't keep them all because if I didn't like a book and I didn't need it anymore, I did get rid of it. That's how I am. And so these books are all books that I read in college that I enjoyed, that I loved, that I thought were worth keeping on my shelves. So I have 22 books here to go through. To start it off, I'm going to start with the first book I read in college, which was Plato's The Republic. I read this for an honors class. This book was a struggle to get through. I don't know if I'll ever reread it, but I could not get rid of this book because once I got through it, this was a badge of honor. This was going to be on my shelf. I wanted everyone to know that I made it through this book. It was actually really interesting too, don't get me wrong. I just had never read anything like this before, so it was quite a way to kick off my college reading, for sure. Behind the Beautiful Forevers, Life, Death, and Hope in a Mumbai Undercity by Catherine Boo. I read this my freshman year. I had never read anything like this, and it just gave me a look into people's lives that I'd never seen before. It just opened my eyes to the way some people live, and I really think it's worth reading. The Triggering Town, Lectures and Essays on Poetry and Writing by Richard Hugo. If you're interested in writing and in poetry, I would pick this up. It's super quick read, very helpful. Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl by Harriet Jacobs. This story just rips your heart out. I did a theme analysis video on this, which I will link. This story will just rip your heart out though. It is super sad, but it is super important, I think. And I feel like this book gets kind of lost among other more famous works, and I think it's very important that we not forget this book and we read it and remember Harriet Jacobs' story. It's really short. So if you're interested in learning what slavery was really like, pick this up. It is a very amazing story, and it won't take you long to read. Walden, or Life in the Woods by Henry David Thoreau. This was another one kind of like Plato's Republic. Like once I got through it, this was gonna be a badge of honor on my bookshelf. I enjoyed parts of it. Other parts got a little dull, but overall I did really like it. I did really enjoy some of Thoreau's ideas on life and living. I still think that this is relevant today because I think today as a society we still have an issue with putting too much value on things, and for Thoreau, when he lived in the woods, it was like the bare minimum, and not saying we need the bare minimum, but I think just getting back to what really matters in life is important. The Bewitching of Anne Gunter, a horrible and true story of deception, witchcraft, murder, and the King of England by James Sharp. I read this book my senior year, and oh my gosh, what a whirlwind. I cannot believe this is a real story, and yet at the same time I can. If you're at all interested in witchcraft and the era where people were persecuted as witches, check this story out. It is insane. And this book is so well written, and it doesn't read like a history book. It doesn't read like a textbook. It reads like a story. I couldn't put it down once I started it because, man, Anne Gunter, she was kind of crazy for doing what she did. She pretended to be a witch, and it's just like, you wonder why someone would do that. You wonder why, but she did it for attention. And yeah, just check out her story if you like history at all. I think that's kind of it for the like nonfiction that I read. I guess Plato's Republic, you can argue, is not really nonfiction. It's a story, but it's philosophy. But anyway, kind of moving away from that, I read The Portable Oscar Wilde, which is obviously by Oscar Wilde. It is a collection of his writings. It also includes his only novel, which is The Picture of Dorian Gray, and it has a couple of his plays and some of his poetry and essays. This I read for a class about understanding literature, and it's a good-sized collection of his works, and I really recommend this edition if you'd like to sample some of his writings. The only book of poetry that I kept from college, I read other books, but I did not keep them because I didn't really get into them. Catullus, I'm talking to you. I hated Catullus. As soon as I was done reading that, I got rid of that book. I hated it. I'm sorry if you like Catullus. Anyway, distracted. But the only book of poetry that I kept from college is A Shropshire Lad and Other Poems by A.E. Housman. I am obsessed with this and obsessed with A.E. Housman. I had never read him before college, and I cannot believe that I didn't know that he existed. And I recommend this to everyone. He is my favorite poet, and I plan to do a video at some point about him and my favorite poems by him, and so watch for that sometime in the future. He is amazing. I love this. This is probably one of my favorite books of all of these that I am showing you today. Now I'll get into some of the fiction books that I read in school that I really loved. We'll start off with smallest and work our way to the largest. So smallest would be The Barracks Thief by Tobias Wolff. This is just a tiny, tiny little story. It's about 3 paratroopers that are about to be shipped off to Vietnam. I don't want to say too much about this because it's so short. I don't want to spoil anything, but check it out. It was really, really good. The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. I love this book. I've read it twice now. I just can't recommend this enough. It's so, so good. 3 Men in a Boat and 3 Men on the Bummel by Jerome K. Jerome. This book is hysterical. It is like slapstick comedy. I love this book. It's 2 books in one technically, but I flew through them because I couldn't put them down because I was laughing like on every page. These 3 bumbling idiots go on trips together, and they just have wacky times, and I love it. It is so fun. And the biggest book that I read in college, Moby Dick by Herman Melville. I really loved this book. Some people don't like this book because there are some chapters that are just like random about whaling and aren't even about the plot of the story. But I actually kind of enjoyed those chapters because it's a topic that I don't know much about, so I felt like I learned something while reading this too, but I really loved the story. And I won't spoil anything, but the ending, oh my gosh, the ending, let me tell ya, you just gotta read it. You just gotta read it. This is what holding a grudge can do and not letting go of the past. If you're looking for a happy read, don't read this one. And now we're going to get into the drama. I read a lot of plays while I was in college, and I didn't even keep them all. Up first is Lysistrata or Lysistrata. I've heard it pronounced both ways. I don't know which way is the correct way because I've heard both about the same amount. But this is by Aristophanes. This play was just crazy. Like, I did not know that an ancient Greek play would be like this. It is very sexualized and crude and hilarious. It is essentially a battle of the sexes. The men are off at war and the women are pissed. And the women are mad and they don't want their men off at war, so they say, we're not gonna have sex with you until you stop. Until you stop fighting. And it turns into a battle of the sexes. And it is just awesome. I would have never expected an ancient Greek play to be like this. Tartuffe by Molière. This is another comedy, and sex plays a big part of this too. It's a common theme in a lot of the plays that I read in college for some reason. I don't know why. But I don't want to say too much about it as I don't want to spoil it. But if you're looking for something comedic, check out Tartuffe. The Country Wife by William Wycherley. Not quite sure if I'm saying that right. I don't remember how it's pronounced. But again, this is another play revolving around sex and being cuckolded. If you don't know what cuckold means, it means that for a man to be a cuckold, it means his wife slept with another man. He was cheated on, essentially. And so this is another comedy. It's pretty light-hearted, but anytime you're talking about cuckolds and cheating, that is kind of a sensitive area for people, me included, so content warning. That kind of goes for Tartuffe as well. Yeah, just so you know. If you're sensitive to cheating or potential cheating, avoid these, but they are lighthearted comedies at the same time, so yeah. A funny thing happened on the way to the forum. This is by Bert Shevelov and Larry Gelbart, I think is how you pronounce their names. But this is based on the plays by Plautus. It's a comedy, very entertaining. So far, for all the plays that I've talked about, I have not seen them in action. I would love to see them in the theater. Some of the future ones I'm going to talk about I have seen, or I've seen like plays inspired by them. But yeah, I would love to see all of these performed because I love going to the theater. Up next is my favorite playwright of all time, which is Tom Stoppard, and I have two of his plays, which is Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead and The Invention of Love. I loved both of these. This is absurdism at its finest. I have never seen another absurdist play or book or anything done as well as Tom Stoppard does it here. This is a work of art. I absolutely love it. Cannot recommend this enough. And I might do a video solely dedicated to this. And The Invention of Love is my all-time favorite play, and I will do a video someday about this play because there is so much that I want to say about this play, but I can't do it here because this video is already getting too long. I doubt I'll ever get to see The Invention of Love performed. It is rarely ever performed. If I do a video in the future, I will explain why. So if you ever hear of this being performed anywhere, I don't care where, just tell me where because I would love to try and go and see it. I have not seen Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead performed, but I have seen bits and pieces of the movie. There is a movie, and I want to see the entire movie because the bits and pieces I have seen of it are just hilarious. I love it. And so, yeah. And this leads me into the next person I'm going to talk about. This play is based on Hamlet by William Shakespeare, obviously. I read quite a few Shakespeare in college. I took a Shakespeare class, actually. But quickly before I talk about Hamlet, I want to talk about As You Like It, also by William Shakespeare. I read this for an honors class. It's the only Shakespeare that I have currently that I didn't read in my Shakespeare class. But anyway, back to Hamlet. I read this in my Shakespeare class. It is the inspiration to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. It is a masterpiece. If you have not read it or seen it performed, you should. It is great. I have two other plays by Shakespeare. I read way more in my Shakespeare class, but I'm gonna be honest, my Shakespeare class totally burned me out on Shakespeare, and when I finished that class, I got rid of all my Shakespeare almost because I just did not want to look at another Shakespeare play ever. And then after I graduated and a few years had passed, I kind of regretted that. As You Like It was the only play I had kept after college, and then when I regretted getting rid of all my Shakespeare, I went out and I bought Hamlet, and then I also bought Macbeth, and I bought A Midsummer Night's Dream. I have reread Hamlet since college still loved it. I have not read these 2 editions since I bought them after school. I would really like to read these editions because I really love these Folger Shakespeare Library publications because they have such great notes in them. So I am planning to reread these at some point in the future. I read a lot more Shakespeare. I don't know if I will buy more Shakespeare or not. We'll just have to see. But these were my favorites, so I just had to buy them again after school because I earned having some Shakespeare on my shelf after surviving that Shakespeare class. I'm gonna be honest. But I read other things, like I read Richard II, I read Henry IV, Henry V, Twelfth Night. I don't even remember all of the plays that we read, and I read all of the sonnets, which I don't currently have anymore. But yeah, so planning a reread. I have reread Hamlet. I have not reread As You Like It, but I remember this super well from reading it in my honors class, and I have seen this one performed, and it was excellent. And so yeah, if you want some Shakespeare, I recommend these 4 especially. There's some other great Shakespeare plays out there too, obviously. I am not a huge fan of Romeo and Juliet. That is not one I will be recommending really on my channel, most likely. Maybe someday I'll reread it, but I did not enjoy it the first time around, and so I have no intention at this point in time to give it another shot. Maybe that'll change in the future, but not right now. So those are all of the books that I read in college that I decided to keep on my shelves, that I really enjoyed and recommend to you if you want to give them a try. Obviously I did read more in college, but I did not keep every single book because I read an insane amount of books when I was in college, and some of them did not click well for me. But these are the ones that did, and these are my recommendations to you if you're looking for some new things to read and maybe challenge your brain a little bit. Some of these are pretty complex and difficult to read, talking about you, Republic, and Shakespeare, but I loved them all. That's all for this video. If you had a good time with me today, hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and head over to my Facebook page if you want some more content from me throughout the week. I will see you guys next Monday. Thanks for talking books with me.